But now with a full demo in the rearview mirror, let's take a look at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the direction it's going, what it could do, and the true potential of Rebirth, and how it could change the formula for the better going from Remake. Now, as a bit of a disclaimer, I'm a bit sick right now, and by a bit I mean really sick. I'm mostly just fine, it's just really congested, so if I sound a little bit off, that's why. So I've played the full demo of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, well, at least most of it. There's like one side objective in Junon I didn't manage to do because I didn't think the main story would, end that quickly. But I've done the main introductory bit of the demo, which is the Cloud and Sephiroth portion, and I've done the Junon open world little slice that they have for the demo. Now, what did I think about the game on the whole? Well, really fun. Also, that Junon bit, I'm either way out of practice or damn was that scaled badly, because I felt like I was on the back end the entire time, like on the back foot. Now, I don't even mind a challenge, it's just something where, as you can probably see in the footage, the more and more time goes on, the more and more I get used to the nuances of Rebirth's combat. I'm still not even particularly that good at it, but it started to click by the final fight in the story. It maintains a lot of those similar elements from Remake that you'll either love or hate. I personally love, in terms of the gameplay, where they try and weave in that ATB combat goodness of old from the original style, alongside a more action, real-time combat system. I loved how Remake blended the two together, and Rebirth has taken many steps in the right direction in that regard, in my opinion. I still think when you're fighting enemies that are in the air, it still feels a little bit clunky, because, at least for Cloud, it relies on you shooting out sword beams, so even if you're on the ground, it works. Cool. I would have preferred it if I could just jump up in the air manually, and I feel a lot of my problems with the game in terms of the combat, or at least the gameplay loop overall, would have been just rectified by a jump button. But honestly, that's kind of the only thing I'm against the game right now, besides maybe the animation of it counting up all your objectives completed after each of these little side encounters may get a little bit tiresome later on. But let's be honest here, let's be fair, these aren't giant overarching critiques or anything, these are just kind of little nitpicks more than anything. Outside of the jump button, I do think the world would navigate better with a jump button. And just anytime I come against anything that's not on ground level, just slamming the circle button I don't necessarily view to be the most optimal thing in the world. It gets the job done, don't get me wrong, I just feel that it'd be more seamless if I had an actual jump button. I think where the real genius of this game will lie in terms of the actual gameplay won't necessarily even lie in the upfront gameplay changes going from Remake to Rebirth. It's gonna lie in the customization, because there's a lot you can do here. There's an entire crafting situation going on as well. We can get into a whole debate about whether or not the game will need a crafting system, and what is it with modern games and always having a crafting system of some caliber or degree. We can have that conversation, but I need to play more Rebirth specifically to be able to make a determining, critique about the crafting system in the game. Seems straightforward and simple enough here, though, from what I've played of it in the demo. But even from the trailers, we saw a lot of new customization and just overall toggleability in regards to each character and how you can build each character. I think that's one of the real brilliant aspects of the Remake games so far, is how each character feels and plays fundamentally different to one another, and no longer just kind of boils down to, hey, what materia did they learn over the course of your journey, and their limit breaks may play a little bit differently, which is how the original FF7 could feel at times, which is fine, don't get me wrong. It's just I also do really appreciate it when, in these party-based RPGs, when each character can feel different, not just in terms of the story or one unique ability or whatever, but also just the way they actually play and interface with the world, and each of these characters do feel different to play. And I enjoy that element of Remake, and I'm enjoying it here in Rebirth as well. I feel that the overall pace of the combat has gone up dramatically, and that may just be them upping the pace of the animations. Well, it could just be me not having played Remake in a little bit, but the game definitely feels snappier and faster, which is something that I do genuinely enjoy, because on the face of it, right, the combat could boil down to you just slamming the square button repeatedly a lot, and it kind of does at times, but with each character's abilities, now synergy attacks as well, which you don't get all that often, let's be fair here, but also when you're into the swing of it in the Rebirth gameplay, and even you can make this argument for Remake as well, when you get into the swing of it, I don't really necessarily mind how quote-unquote spammy it could be, because I'm always paying attention to all three of the characters and how much ATB they're each individually generating, and how I want to spend it all. And with a character like Cloud, okay, do I want to be my regular form or do I want to be in my, like, main DPS form, right? With Bear, do I want to charge my gun? Do I just want to blankly fire? For Tifa, do I just want to do an uppercut or do I want to augment that with an ATB for like Omni attack and stuff like that? It's the little decisions that you can make in this combat loop that I do find really fun and that I think do make the combat loop so special in what it is. How you're always managing these different characters and you can freely swap between each of them. And when you need a breather just to think about the situation on the whole, the game gives you that opportunity with the ATB abilities. And I really, really, really think that is the crux of why this combat loop works so well in my opinion. Because obviously it isn't turn-based, but it gives you a nice little, like, flavor. It has, like, real-time combat seasoning. Actually, I think the best way to describe it, in my opinion, is you have a steak, right? Or like a piece of chicken. And like the meat of it, that is real-time combat. And it's done relatively well. And it's juicy and it's moist and it's tasty. But it has this seasoning on top of it of that turn-based fun and strategy. It's not the focal point of it, but it augments what is there to make the overall experience more enriching and flavorful. And that's what I really find fun about Rebirth and the potential that it really has. By giving us even more kits than before, giving us more customization, more opportunities to utilize these characters and intermix with one another to create different synergies and whatnot throughout the entire game. Give us an opportunity to take this combat loop that worked in Remake and just lean into it in Rebirth, and that seemingly is what they're doing. Giving us more customization, more ways to augment the experience, and more ways in just player agency in terms of what characters do we want to use at any given time. Even the idea that we don't have to use Cloud 24/7. That's great. I probably will, because I'm that kind of player. But there's going to be a lot of players out there that would prefer not to have to use Cloud, for whatever reason. And that's the joy of a system like this, where each character can have their own little unique playstyle that exists within the overall ecosystem, is that there's probably something or someone that appeals to you. And for me, Cloud and Tifa appeal to me in terms of their playstyle. I need to play with Red 13 a little bit more. I never really chalked him up to be a tank myself, but easy come, easy go, I guess. And with the synergy abilities and how we've seen through the trailers that you can like spec into them and like change them, that's really cool. And with how big this game is shaping up to be, having all that in-depth customization is probably for the best. And I've talked about Rebirth before and how much I'm looking forward to it, and how I think it's a real good return to form in a lot of ways, not just for the Remake series, but Final Fantasy on the whole. I tend to find Final Fantasy is at its best and most well-received when it's able to make a great blend between two extremes, the serious emotional overtones or overtures of the story, but also those wacky, silly, just what even am I looking at moments that Final Fantasy is known for. And 7 especially. 7 is extremely wacky and it can get extremely serious. 7's a great blend of the idea that you can have these two extremes cohabit this one game and they work, because they know when to go from one to the other. The pacing works in that regard. And when it comes to Remake, I mean Rebirth here especially, just lean into it. Don't try and shy away from the silly, wacky elements because the game looks more realistic and you believe that that suspension of disbelief you could get away with the old polygon characters of old would no longer fly. Lean into the silliness, lean into the wackiness, because why not? Oh yeah, chocobos can fly. How do they gain altitude? Flap their wings? No. They, like, rocket a jet stream of water out of their cloaca or whatever that animation looked like, and they rocket up into the air. Let's give Cloud, like, a Vespa or whatever it's called. Like a little scooter to go around Costa del Sol on. Why not? Let's have these big, bombastic, musical moments in the Gold Saucer, because that's what Final Fantasy VII does so well. In a game all about saving the world, you have to actually want to save the world, and by having the world itself be so silly and wacky and fun and endearing, when the story gets emotional and serious, and when you're actually trying to save the world, you have some stakes in it because, well, they've already established some reasons that you may or may not want to save the world for. Final Fantasy VII did a really good job back in the day of developing and fleshing out an entire world in just a 40-hour experience, which is not an easy feat to do. Rebirth, however, is a allotted far more time to really delve into it. We spent all of Remake in just Midgar, and look how good that turned out to be. Now, in Rebirth, we have all this time to develop all of these locations from the rest of Disc 1. Take your time, let them spread their wings and develop their own identity, and that seemingly is what they're doing. Don't shy away from what made the original so fun and everlasting. Lean into them and try and be even sillier and more emotional, because that's the heart and soul of Final Fantasy VII at the end of the day. Why not have it be that when you go to Under Junon, that Cloud saves the day by like riding a dolphin to deliver a final attack on a boss fight that takes like 10 to 15 minutes or whatever? Yeah, why not? All of a sudden, I care about that dolphin. I want to see that dolphin return, and that dolphin has contributed to the actual story. Just in the demo of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, they've given me more reason to care about a dolphin than many other games have given me reason to care about the entire cast of characters. Because we don't have to take everything so seriously. We can when it's appropriate, but we don't have to do it all the time. We can have these fun and silly, wacky moments exist, and I think that's what Final Fantasy does so well. And Final Fantasy, for better or for worse, tries to mess with this balance every now and then. But personally speaking, I think Final Fantasy is at its best when it's able to have a blend of these two extremes, and doesn't just try and find somewhere in the middle to land. That can work, I can still enjoy that game, but I think Final Fantasy is at its best when it's able to blend these two together and have them stand side by side. You don't have to have a dolphin come out of nowhere when a big character death happens, let's say, and let's call it that to avoid spoilers. Like, you don't have to have that happen. Let that moment breathe and exist and be emotional. But when we go to the Gold Saucer, let's have fun and silliness and wackiness. Lean into it, and that seemingly is what they're doing. And even then, we're gonna have probably an emotional moment with the Aerith song that was shown in the trailer. I think Rebirth is shaping up to be really good, and that's because they're just showing on such a consistent basis, and even in the demo, in both versions of the demo that I played, that hey, we understand what made Final Fantasy VII so fun and endearing back in the day. We're not gonna shy away from that, we're gonna lean into those elements, while expanding on what came before to add on, not take away. And that's what it feels like. And that's why I have a lot of faith in Rebirth, and why I've had a lot of faith in Rebirth, and why I continue to. Because every time they have an opportunity to trip over themselves, they don't. They lean into those Final Fantasy VII aspects. And that won't be for everyone, but it is Final Fantasy VII. And you know what? That is for me. So that's why I'm looking forward to it. And why, even after playing the full demo, again, most of the demo, because I didn't do that like one side objective, because I didn't realize the demo would end as you got like an Under Junon and fought the one boss. I thought there'd be a little bit more to it. But like, after the demo, I'm more sure of this than ever. And I'm optimistic, and I'm looking forward to Rebirth. We'll see how the game goes from there, because it's not that far away. So thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. I'm gonna go continue being sick, by the way, so if you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe, and the bell icon to be notified when I upload and stream in the future. And leave a comment down below with who is shaping up to be your main character to play as in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your opinions. For me, probably Cloud or Tifa, because I find, well, Tifa just punching and kicking everything to be fun and fast-paced. And Cloud's just really fun. I like hitting things with a giant sword, okay? Look, I'm a Soulsborne player, you know? I'm a man of very simple needs. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe. Have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.